Before we begin, let's establish the rules. Today, I am going to be speaking critically about the movie Inception. This does not mean I hate the movie Inception. I think it's okay. But I'm going to look critically at it because there is something to be learned from looking at things closely, from different angles, and critically. The next rule is for you, the audience. You will hear me out. Even if you love Inception, you will engage your critical mind, you will investigate all of the film's creases and cracks. I promise you will not love it any less when this is over. Those are the rules. You ready? Hi, my name is Tim, I write for television, and I think making sense is overrated. Before we start talking about Inception, we need to talk about plot holes. One of my least favorite critiques of any movie is that it has plot holes. The reason I don't like this critique is that if you really get down to it, every story ever made has plot holes. See here, Jurassic Park. In this scene, the heroes are in a car next to a dinosaur enclosure with trees and a fence. You can see that the dinosaur enclosure is at the same level as the street beside it. Now, in a later scene, two of our heroes cross the fence and plummet 50 feet down to the ground. So how did the dinosaur get out of the enclosure if it's 50 feet down? Plot hole. Does anybody care? And that's just the start with Jurassic Park. Hacking is not like that. Electrocution is nothing like that. How did Sam Jackson's arm wind up there? Were the raptors saving his arm for later? Were these leftovers?
See, nobody cares.
If you comb through every line, every shot, you will find an inconsistency. To be human is to err, and art is human, if nothing else. Now here's the thing, if you want to criticize a movie for its realism, you can, and you should. I've made a video already about how I think movies in certain genres have a responsibility to portray the real world at least somewhat accurately. But I think it only matters in a context where the audience expects this to be some sort of recreation of real life. No one is going to get mad at you for breaking the rules of the universe when Iron Man shoots lasers out of his hands. You could argue that a movie has inconsistent characters, or unclear motives, or the rules of the universe are not well defined so you don't know if they're being broken. All these are perfectly reasonable critiques. I don't mean to say you can't make fun of a movie for having dumb stuff in it. I hope I've made my point clear that if a movie fails at verisimilitude or world building, it's fine to call those things out. Just stop talking about plot holes. But I want to take this one step further. What about a movie that does not clear even the lowest bar of realism? What about a movie that has no interest in making sense? What about a movie about dreams? For starters, let's talk about David Lynch. First of all, rest in peace, you will always be a legend. David Lynch made a whole career out of not making sense. His movies are dreamlike and obtuse, they require investigation and analysis to understand, and some of them are purposefully meaningless. Now, I don't vibe with every David Lynch movie, some of them I find kind of boring and irritating, but Mullholland Drive is a masterpiece. Let's find out why. Hey Tim, isn't this video about Inception? Yes, just bear with me, we'll get there. First, Mullholland Drive tells you right at the start that this movie is not supposed to reflect the real world. One of the first scenes includes two men talking at a diner. One of them is describing a dream where he's at a diner with his friend, and the friend is right over there. And he's scared. In his dream, there's a face behind the diner, and it is a face that terrifies him. Then, he and his friend go out back, he sees a scary face, and he dies of fright. What's fabulous about this is that at first you think you're watching a scene about someone describing a dream. But as the scene unfolds, you realize that everything he describes about the dream is happening in this scene. This scene is the dream. And by putting this scene first before the rest of the movie's plot unfolds, you are being told very directly that this film is a dream. This is not real, and so don't expect realism from the rest of the narrative. Mullholland Drive continually plays with genre conventions, as if this were a crime drama or a neo-noir, but then it twists each scene into absurdity so that you never forget the unrealness of everything. So how does one get invested in a character arc if you know this is all a dream? The trick is to keep the emotional journey very simple and grounded, and relatable. Even though the story drifts in and out of the nonsensical, it tells a very simple emotional story about a young woman coming to LA and then experiencing sexual abuse at the hands of an industry she idolizes. It's a story we know now was extremely real. Okay, can we talk about Inception now? Yeah, just a minute. For another great example of unreal storytelling, let's look at Satoshi Kon. First of all, rest in peace, you will always be a legend. Satoshi Kon also made films about dreams. His movie Paprika is about a device that allows people to go into each other's dreams. Sound familiar? A group of scientists are testing the device for its therapeutic use when the device is stolen and some unknown culprit is invading people's dreams, locking them in. As the story unfolds, the team of scientists drift between the real world and the world of dreams, as their minds are being invaded by the mystery bad guy. The movie doesn't really explain the technology, it never lays out the rules. At first, the audience may try to make sense of the premise. They might assume that anyone who used this device will get their dreams invaded, only that premise is shattered by the final act when dreams and reality become indistinguishable, and all of the world is trapped in one giant dream. Does this make sense? Maybe. But the thing is that by this point in the film, you are so unsure about the rules, so unsure about the nature of reality, that you abandon all hope of making sense of it. You start to see it as it was meant to be seen, as a dream. The main character, Atsuko, is a stone-faced control freak with a bit of a mean streak, but when she enters the dreams of others, she becomes her alter ego, the free-spirited, cheery Paprika. Except, sometimes she's Paprika in the real world, too. How can that be? Don't worry about it. This isn't supposed to make sense. But how can we, the audience, get invested in a story that intentionally doesn't make sense? Well, much like Mullholland Drive, beneath all the fantastical imagery and reality defiance, the characters of Paprika go on a very simple emotional journey. Atsuko needs to allow herself to dream, Toshimi needs to forgive himself for abandoning his dream. These character arcs are very relatable and easy to follow. So even though you may not understand how this whole dream machine works, you know that this lady needs to admit her feelings for this guy. Okay, so now let's talk about Inception. Right after you finish subscribing to this channel. I'll wait. Inception tells the story of a man named Cobb who is paid to go into the mind of Robert Fisher and convince him to dissolve his father's company. The rules of this device are made incredibly clear. There's dream defenses, dreams within dreams, time dilation, the kick, totems, the limbo you go to if you go too deep. Each detail of this dream heist is laid out very clearly, and each is paid off later in the movie, like a good script should. It crosses all the T's and dots all the I's, and because of that, none of this feels like a dream. It feels extremely orderly. What do these dream defenses look like? Guys with guns. How do you defeat these dream defenses? Dream guns, mostly. When you roll over in one dream layer, you roll over in the other. That makes sense. But why would it? When has a dream ever made sense? Like, there's this scene where Joseph Gordon-Levitt turns to Elliot Page and is like, "Kiss me so we can blend in," because they're about to get caught. And can I say, I have seen this trope in so many movies. Captain America Winter Soldier, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Everybody make out and kiss hard! Like you mean it! Whoa!
It's tropey, but tropes aren't always bad. In Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, it sets up a fun confrontation with Harmony. In The Winter Soldier, it sets up an arc about intimacy. But why use this trope in the first place? I mean, this is a dream. One of the core features of a dream is that nothing is incongruous. You could be having dinner with your mother, your high school science teacher, and your dog who looks like Harry Styles, and all of the food is just piles of harmonicas, and none of that would seem out of place, because this is a dream. But Nolan seems to be completely uninterested in dreams. He seems interested in making a tropey spy movie. And what's more frustrating about this little cheeky kiss beat is that it's not in service of some subplot where these two shack up in the end. There is no resolution or even continuation of their relationship. It's a trope for the sake of a trope. What I think makes Inception so interesting is that it's so concerned with making sense that it hinders its ability to generate a feeling of adventure. Everything feels so tangible and tactile, especially if you compare it to the freewheeling insanity of Paprika, where characters literally float from one bizarre moment to another. And I think this is the danger of making too much sense. It makes it impossible to truly surprise your audience, to transport them to uncharted cinematic waters. A lot has been made of the fact that Inception isn't really a movie about dreams, it's a movie about filmmaking. Cobb is the director, and he assembles a film crew to create an elaborate story for the unwitting audience, who they trick. And while all of that is true, it's not a particularly invigorating emotional journey. Meanwhile, Paprika is also about filmmaking, only it's not focused on process, but instead the love of cinema, and the regret that comes from denying yourself artistic expression. Do you see the difference? Paprika focuses on a common, relatable emotional journey instead of a practical, logical process. The thing about dreams is that they are the first story we as a species ever told, and we told them to ourselves. Before we had language, we had dreams. And in those dreams, we experienced unreal events. Fiction. Dreams are the blueprint for fiction, for made-up tales. I think that dreams are a treasure, a lucky blessing of evolution, or a gift from our creator, if that's something you believe. And I think there is value in trapping the feeling of a dream, bottling it up, and presenting it in cinema. Only to do it, you have to forget about all the boundaries you put up in your mind. You have to stop making sense. So get in the comments, let me know what are your favorite movies about dreams. Leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more of this content, and I will see you next week. Good night.